Have you ever wondered why bad things happen to us when we are at our weakest? When you are tired, trying, then something unexpected happens and everything seems to collapse. A bad call, a rejection, a door slams shut just when you put all your trust in it. At those times, we often think, why me? Why now? But today, I want to share with you a completely different perspective, a concept that has changed the way I approach every event in my life. From the smallest things to the biggest losses, from the things I used to hate to learning to love them. It is an ancient Latin word, Amor Fati. It means, love your fate. Sounds crazy, right? To love things that hurt? To love things that are unfair, wrong, even cruel? And I understand you, because I used to rebel against life. Whenever something didn't go my way, I felt betrayed. I got angry. I got frustrated. I tried to fix it, force it, change the outcome. But the strange thing is, the more I tried to control it, the more I felt like I was losing my freedom, losing my peace. The reason is that our minds, especially in the modern world, are trained to seek control. We are taught that if we are smart enough, work hard enough, plan enough, then everything will work out. But the truth is, it doesn't. Life doesn't work that way. One time, I prepared carefully for an important speech. Everything was almost perfect, but that very morning, I lost my voice. No sound came out of my throat. I panicked. I was angry with myself, with the weather, with fate. Then I remembered Marcus Aurelius' quote, "Love whatever happens, for it was woven for you." And I sat down. Instead of getting angry, I rewrote my speech into a letter to the audience. I didn't have the voice to speak, but I had the words to express myself. The speech didn't happen on stage that day, but that letter touched more people than I ever thought possible. From that I understood, Amor Fati does not ask us to like bad things. It only asks us not to fight them, not to see them as enemies, but as an indispensable part, as the fire that forges us into stronger versions of ourselves. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can choose who we become in the midst of adversity. I'm not saying you have to smile when you lose a loved one, or be positive when you face a major setback. Amor Fati doesn't ask you to pretend. It simply invites you to go deeper, from the question, why is this happening to me, to the question, what can I learn from this? The truth is, no life is complete without loss, failure, or unpleasant twists, but it is from them that we are shaped. No sword is forged in warm water. Amor Fati teaches you to love the things you once hated, not because they are pleasant, but because they are necessary, not because they are fair, but because they make you who you are. And when you accept that proactively, you are no longer a victim of life. You become the creator of your life. From the very things you once wanted to erase, you start living with true freedom. And nothing can take that away from you. When we mention Amor Fati, loving fate, many people may think, that sounds unrealistic. How can I love heartbreak, failure, or even injustice? But you know what? The greatest thinkers in history didn't just believe in Amor Fati, they lived it. In the midst of war, exile, loss, and despair, and it was from that very depth that they found a freedom that no condition could ever take away. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor and philosopher, wrote in his Meditations that love everything that happens to you. Because it was woven for you, it doesn't happen to hurt you. It happens to make you stronger. For Marcus, every hardship is not an accident, but part of the design of the universe, and that design is flawless. Imagine this: you wake up one day, betrayed, or robbed of an important opportunity, or forced to start over, and instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you learn to say, "Okay, what do I need to learn here?" That's how an emperor becomes not only the master of his outer empire, but also the master of his inner mind. And Epictetus, a former slave, said something profound: "It is not the things that make us suffer, but the way we think about them. If a man can be chained, live in poverty and be despised, and still maintain peace of mind, then do you think we, with all the opportunities in modern times, have any reason to fall when faced with challenges?" Amor Fati, according to Epictetus, is the ability to control one's own thinking, to train oneself to respond not by instinct, but by reason. When something bad happens, we can see it as a disaster, or we can see it as material for training our inner strength. Have you ever heard the saying, "It's not what happens, but how you react to it that matters"? That's the core of Stoic thinking, and Amor Fati is the ultimate expression of this way of living, a way of living where you don't run away from pain, but instead walk into it with your eyes wide open and your heart free of resentment. Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher known for his bold and powerful ideas, took Amor Fati to an even higher level. He wrote, "I don't want anything to be different, not even a little bit different. I wish everything that happens, both good and bad, would happen again. Exactly the same, over and over again." Does that send a chill down your spine? Not just acceptance, but a desire to relive everything, including the pain, over and over again. Why would a person think that? Because Nietzsche believed that when you no longer fear pain, when you no longer need things to be easy, then you are truly free. No one can manipulate you with rewards. No one can control you with threats. You are not dependent on the outcome. You are only focused on how you react. And you know what's best? This way of thinking, the Amor Fati way of seeing the world, isn't just for philosophers. It's for you, for me, for anyone who wants to live a life they can be proud of, even in pain, because you are not just surviving, you are training your soul every day. So the next time something goes wrong, try doing what Marcus, Epictetus, and Nietzsche did. Don't fight it. Go with it, and love it. Here's something interesting you'll notice when you look at the most resilient people in the world. They don't have it any easier than you do. They experience loss, failure, and heartache more than the average person. But there's one difference. They see adversity in a completely different light. They don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" They ask, "What is this coming to cultivate in me?" And that is the mindset of Amor Fati, learning to see every adversity not as an enemy, but as a necessary ingredient to train yourself. Imagine an eagle. It is not afraid of headwinds. In fact, headwinds are what help it fly higher and farther, because that resistance, if used properly, creates lift. Likewise, any challenge you are facing, whether it is work pressure, a broken relationship, or a painful fall in life, can become a lift. If you change the way you look at it. I remember one time, I failed at a project that I had put all my time and effort into. The failure came unexpectedly. I was disappointed, angry, and completely lost. For the first few days, my emotions were what drove me. I looked for someone to blame. I blamed myself. I blamed others. But then I asked myself, if I'm going to live the Stoic way of thinking that I've always preached, now is the time to apply it. I sat down and wrote a simple question. What can I learn from this failure? And guess what? That question opened up a new path. I realized that it was my impatience, my perfectionism, and my fear of being judged that kept me from listening to others and from being flexible enough to adjust early. It wasn't a pleasant lesson, but it was a valuable one. And without that fall, I would never have grown to be who I am today. Which brings me to an important point. The average person reacts emotionally. When things get chaotic, the first instinct is fear. Anger, wanting to get away, wanting to erase. But if you practice Amor Fati, you stop for a moment, observe that emotion, and then turn it into a lesson. The difference between reacting and reflecting is that pause. A person who lives by Amor Fati does not follow his first emotion, but uses reason to guide him. Like a sailor who does not fight against the storm, but adjusts the sails so that the wind will guide the ship in the right direction. And perhaps the most useful thing I've learned on this journey is to always ask myself one question whenever things don't go as planned. What is this teaching me? The answer may not come immediately, but if you are honest and patient, you will see. Every experience has a message, an invitation, an opportunity to upgrade the way you live, the way you think, and the way you are. And it's at that moment, when you no longer see adversity as something to be overcome, but as something to be learned from, that you begin to live differently. You no longer expect things to be easy. You expect yourself to be strong enough to overcome them all. Our lives, no matter how carefully planned, always have unexpected turns. Doors close without warning. Failures happen despite your best efforts. Losses leave you stranded in the middle of life. And often, the first thing we do is fight it. We feel bitter, confused, even lost. But if you approach life with a different mindset, the mindset of Amor Fati, you will begin to see things in a whole new light. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because you have learned to see the value in the very thing you once feared the most. Let's start with a familiar example: rejection. Maybe you've been rejected in love, at work, or in a relationship where you had high expectations. It can be hard to bear. You may feel inadequate, disappointed, or lose faith in yourself. But if you're living in the spirit of Amor Fati, you'll understand that a closed door is not a condemnation, it's a necessary change. Not everyone is for you. Not every opportunity is right for your journey. And sometimes, you have to lose something you want to get closer to what you really need. I was once rejected from a position I thought I was meant to do. At the time, I was confused and blamed myself. But a few months later, a completely new direction opened up, and it led me to the job I love today. If I hadn't been rejected that day, I wouldn't have found myself. Next is failure, something none of us want to face. But think about it. The most profound lessons you've ever learned have all come from failure? When you practice Amor Fati, you will no longer see failure as an enemy. You will see it as a stern but sincere teacher. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you will learn to ask, "What have I learned that I didn't realize before?" Once I invested a lot of time and effort into a startup project. I thought it would be a huge success, but it failed after only a few months. At first, I blamed the situation, but then, when I calmed down, I realized I did not test the market carefully. I built a product based on myself, not real needs. If it had not failed, I would have continued to live in illusion. And that lesson, to this day, is still the guiding principle for everything I do. Finally, when you face loss, illness, or the impermanence of life, this is the hardest part, because no one teaches us how to accept the inevitable departure, the brokenness, the change. But Amor Fati, loving the unwanted, doesn't ask you to be happy about losing someone or facing an illness. It just reminds you, accept it with stability. Let it teach you something about life, about transience, about the value of each moment. We cannot avoid suffering, but we can choose not to let that suffering make us bitter, resentful, or broken. Amor Fati teaches us that everything that happens has a place, even the things that seem unacceptable. So next time you get rejected, when a plan fails, or when life is in chaos, try making one small change. Don't ask, "Why?" but ask, "Where is this taking me?" Maybe that very question will open up a whole new way of living for you. A more peaceful, more powerful, and more free way of living. Understanding the philosophy of Amor Fati is one thing, but how do you put it into practice in real life? Because theory is easy, but when you're having a bad day, when things go wrong, when people misunderstand, when all your hard work goes to waste, that's when Amor Fati stops being a nice saying. It becomes a survival skill. And believe me, no one wakes up one morning and falls in love with fate instantly. Amor Fati is a journey, a habit of mind that is practiced day by day. And if you really want to apply it, start with these 4 simple but powerful steps. Step 1. Identify resistance. I want you to take a moment, really seriously, and ask yourself, what is it in my life right now that I hate or want to avoid the most? Maybe it's a job you're no longer passionate about, a relationship that's gone cold, a simmering frustration with yourself. Don't judge. Don't try to rationalize. Just write it down. What we dare not name is what controls us the most. Amor Fati does not ask you to like it, but asks you to look at it, as an adult looks at his wound, not denying it, not exaggerating it, simply admitting, it is here. Step 2. Practice letting go. It may sound cliché, but this is the foundation of all Stoic thinking. Make a clear distinction between what you can control and what you cannot. This is the famous principle called dichotomy of control, separation of control. You can't control how other people think about you, but you can control how you react. You can't control the end result, but you can control the effort you put in every day. Write a list. One column is things I can control. One column is things I can't control. And every time your mind gets pulled into a negative emotion, look back at the list. Your mind will gradually be reprogrammed to choose letting go instead of clinging. Step 3. Turn adversity into energy for action. Every time you get hurt, instead of closing it off, transform it into concrete action to grow yourself. Being criticized? Instead of taking it personally, practice stronger skills. Feeling abandoned? Instead of feeling down, learn to take better care of yourself. You failed? Instead of giving up, improve your approach. Amor Fati doesn't encourage you to stand still and suffer. It encourages you to move forward, with your feet more firmly planted on the very things that once tripped you up. And the final step: meditate daily on death and impermanence. It sounds dark, but it is actually one of the most beautiful and powerful practices of Stoic philosophy, memento mori. Which means, remember that you will die, not to make you pessimistic, but to make you live meaningfully, not to make you afraid, but to make you cherish every moment. Every time you remember that everything is temporary, even sadness, even failure, you will feel lighter and clear-headed enough to choose a better response. You don't have to love pain right away, but you can choose not to be consumed by it. You can choose to see it as an integral part of your journey of self-growth. Amor Fati is not for those looking for an easy life. It is for those who want to build an unshakable inner strength. And that journey begins with a decision. Right now, are you willing to face and train your mind every day? Many people, when first hearing the phrase Fati loving fate, often thought of as resignation. It's like, I can't do anything else, so I have to accept it. But the truth is quite the opposite. Amor Fati doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you passive or resigned. On the contrary, it's the mindset of an inner warrior, someone who understands that nothing in this world is strong enough to break them, if they take the initiative to love it and learn from it. Think about it. In a battle, who is the hardest to defeat? Not good at avoiding, not a crazy attacker either, but someone who is not afraid of pain, someone who can stand up after every fall. Someone who knows how to turn every injury into a new layer of armor. That is the spirit of Amor Fati. Nothing can hurt you, not because you are numb, but because you know how to transform that hurt into strength. I remember a close friend of mine being betrayed in a relationship she had trusted completely. For weeks, she fell into a deep depression, beating herself up, blaming herself for trusting so much. But then, instead of remaining in a spiral of grief, she began to do something few people dare to do. She wrote down everything she had learned from the hurt. She wrote about the boundaries she had pushed, about how she had lost herself to hold on to someone who didn't deserve her, about the things she needed to work on: strength, self-respect, the ability to say no when necessary. She no longer saw the incident as an unhealable wound. She saw it as an invitation to maturity. And because of that, she wasn't brought down by hurt. She was lifted up. She didn't become bitter or afraid of love, but became smarter, calmer, and stronger in the way she moved forward. That is Amor Fati, loving even what hurts you, so that nothing can control you anymore. In a world where people are increasingly vulnerable to everything, a negative comment, a small failure, a rejection, imagine someone who can stand firm amidst all the chaos. Not because they are insensitive, but because they have chosen to love whatever comes their way. That's not weakness. That's invincibility. You will no longer live your life avoiding pain. You will no longer panic when things don't go according to plan. You will no longer depend on external validation to know your worth. Because you understand that everything that happens is your part. And when you love it, you own it. Nothing can control you. Nothing can knock you down. That's why Amor Fati is not for the faint of heart. It is for those who are willing to turn pain into wisdom, obstacles into opportunities, and turn life, no matter what, into a place to train an indomitable inner strength. There is one thing that most of us have experienced, the feeling of wanting to run away from our own lives. When things get messy, when dreams are shattered, when the worst happens, our first instinct is fight. We protest, we fight back, we try to fix things. Or worse, we run away from how we really feel, pretending it doesn't hurt. But then you realize one thing: the more you fight fate, the more it swallows you up. Have you ever wondered, why is it that the more you try to control things, the more you lose control? Why is it that the more we fear something, the more it haunts us? Why is it that the more we avoid a pain, the more it appears in our mind? That's because life isn't something to be avoided. It's a flow that we need to learn to go with, not against. The philosophy of Amor Fati, love your fate, is not simply accepting what happens. It is a step further, living fully in your fate, even when it is not exactly what you wanted. I remember talking to a man in his 50s who had gone through a major life event. He lost everything in bankruptcy. For the first 2 years, he was devastated, depressed, blaming himself, shunning society. But then one day he said to me, I stopped asking why it happened. Instead, I asked, what can I do with the rest of my life now? From that moment on, he began to do the little things again. A manual job, an evening class, a heartfelt encounter, and slowly, life not only recovered, but became deeper and more meaningful than ever. He no longer needed to fix his fate. He began to live it fully, with a proactive attitude. When you stop fighting life, you are not giving up. You simply let go of the need to control what is beyond your control. To focus all your energy on what you can do, how you live, how you think, how you react, and from then on, you are no longer a victim. You become the creator of meaning from seemingly meaningless things. You don't wait for a perfect plan to start living. You start living from the present fragment. When you live with Amor Fati, you understand life is not always fair, but it always has a reason. Every event, everything that happens, whether it is something you choose or not, brings with it an opportunity to grow, to expand your inner strength, to build a deeper self. And the great thing is, you don't have to wait for something better to feel at peace. True peace comes from living fully in the present moment, however challenging it may be. So, if you are facing adversity today, don't turn away. Let's get right to it. Be fully present, and then you will see, from the very place you once wanted to run away, a stronger version of you is waiting to be born. We live in an age where everyone is searching for peace, but few actually know how to create that peace from within. We often think that when life is stable, when work is better, when relationships are healed, when everything is okay, then we will feel at peace. But then, things are never completely okay. Change is constant, and so, peace seems like something far away, always slipping away. But if I told you that there is a way to live peacefully even in the midst of chaos, would you believe it? The answer lies in a seemingly simple philosophy. Amor Fati, love your fate. When you learn to love everything that happens, not just the good, but also the unpleasant, unwanted things, you begin to enter a very different inner state, a state of active peace. Not the false peace that comes from ignoring your problems, but the peace that comes from deep, intelligent acceptance. You no longer dwell on the past, because you have no regrets. You no longer fear the future, because you know you are ready to take whatever comes your way. I once met a woman in her 60s who had just undergone a serious surgery and lost a loved one within the year. But as we talked, I was struck by the calmness in her eyes. I asked her, "How do you stay so calm?" She smiled and replied, "Because I have accepted that life is not promised. And because of that, I appreciate everything more." She doesn't try to control everything. She doesn't deny the pain. But she doesn't let the pain take over her life in the present. That is Amor Fati, living with a proactive, mindful, and steady spirit. You know what's great about Amor Fati? It doesn't require you to be perfect. It just requires you to be fully present with what is happening. Even if today is a bad day, even if you don't get what you want, even if someone hurts you, you can still choose one thing: not to let it make you a victim. Amor Fati is the path to lasting peace, because it does not depend on circumstances. It depends on how you look at life. And as you practice Amor Fati every day, every reaction, every choice, every moment of your life, you gradually build an inner self that nothing can shake. Life won't always go your way, but you can proactively create clarity, stability, and peace in the midst of it. You no longer need everything to go smoothly to feel secure. You don't need everyone to understand you to feel complete. And you no longer live in regrets of the past or fears of the future. There is only one thing left: your state of mind, here. Now, if you learn to love even the things you hate, you will have nothing to fear in this life, because you are not running away anymore. You are stepping straight into life, fully, peacefully, and unconditionally. If you happen to come across this video today, it may not be just a coincidence. It might be a sign, a gentle invitation from the universe, that you're ready to receive the messages meant specifically for you. Out of the thousands of videos passing by each day, not everyone stops here. But if you're reading these words right now, I believe it's because your energy has aligned with the right frequency. This video isn't just empty theory or another trendy voice on social media. What you're about to hear are lessons I've lived, reflected on, and distilled through real-life experience. And while these ideas may not be easy to absorb with logic alone, if you listen with your heart, I truly believe they can open a new path for you. Stay until the end, because sometimes, just one idea, heard at the right moment, can change the way we live the rest of our lives. If you feel connected to this video, please hit the like button to let me know you're walking this path too. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of the deep spiritual insights to come. This journey begins now. Welcome back to your truest self.